Welcome to the Fun Astrology and Merriman Market Analyst Saturday Financial Podcast. I'm Thomas Miller. Thank you for joining us. This is the free weekly newsletter published every weekend on MMAcycles.com by financial analyst and wonderful astrologer Ray Merriman. This is for the week October 7th. We always begin with a weekly review of the week past. And starting with an article from the Wall Street Journal, employers added 254,000 jobs last month, the Labor Department said on Friday. That was significantly more than the 150,000 economists expected and marked the largest monthly increase since March. The unemployment rate slipped to 4.1%. Friday's bumper payrolls report is likely to close the door on another half percentage rate cut by the Federal Reserve at its next meeting in November. It should keep officials on track to lower rates by a quarter point. And then from Friday's FoxBusiness.com, striking U.S. dock workers will return to work Friday after reaching a tentative agreement with employers on an improved wage offer. The conditional offer was for a 62% wage increase. The offer is on the table for the next 90 days. If no deal is reached within that time frame, the proposed wage hike will be pulled from the table, end quote. And from Thursday's CNBC.com, Beijing's announcements of economic support last week have fueled China's CSI 300 Blue Chip Index to rally over 25% in a 9-day winning streak. Now, Ray's comments for the weekend review. It was a peculiar week for financial markets, he begins. But then again, it was a bizarre week in terms of competing but very significant mundane news events throughout the world that roiled some markets, propelled others, and yet, in most cases, just caused indecisive price movements back and forth. That is, there was the tragedy of Hurricane Helene, wreaking horrific damage and loss of lives across the southern United States. Happening at the same time, U.S. dock workers went on strike, threatening to collapse much of the economy if not resolved quickly. But then it was resolved quickly. Then there were the stunning Israeli airstrikes that wiped out much of the major leadership in Hezbollah, which then drew Iran to launch a massive missile attack on Israel, which in turn threatened a retaliation and further dismantling of Iran's and Hezbollah and Hamas's military, if not their entire political leadership, as the world moves even closer to World War III, a possibility explained in our webinars and forecast books over the past 2 years as peaking from 2023 to 2025. On top of that, there was finally a meaningful vice presidential debate last week that each side claimed as victory for their candidate. With all of these events transpiring in just 1 week, it was no wonder that most global stock indices didn't know what to do. Most pulled back from the recent highs of Friday through Monday, September 27th through 30th, but the declines were not steep. It was as if investors were confused as to whether the human suffering would lead to losses of business or increased profits due to new demands for services and equipment that would be needed to rebuild. One stock index that defined this malaise of confusion was China, where the nation's recent new stimulus program ignited a huge rally. China's SSE index exploded from a 5.5-year cyclical low at 2689 on the day of the lunar eclipse, September 18th, to a new 17-month high of 3358 on Friday. That's a spectacular gain of 25% in just 8 trading days. Prices also soared in sympathy in the Hang Seng Stock Index of Hong Kong. Another market that exploded higher last week in response to the escalation of war tensions in the Middle East was crude oil. On October 1st, crude was trading near the lows of the year at $66.33. 3 days later, by Friday, October 4th, crude was up to $75.57, an increase of nearly 14%. But that was about it for the markets that did extremely well last week. Silver performed fairly well, rising to a new yearly high on Friday of $33.22, but then it pulled back and closed nearly $1 lower. Gold was like stocks, failing to make a new all-time high after last week's high of $27.08, but it didn't fall too hard either, holding its weekly lows around $26.50. Bitcoin's performance was similar, After making a new multi-month high of 66,426 on September 27th, it dropped back slightly below 60,000 on Thursday. However, after the positive payroll reports, Bitcoin rallied back above 62,000. It's entering a time band for a new low that will likely determine if a longer cycle trough is in or not. If it is, there could easily be new all-time highs by the end of this year. And that's it for the review section. Now the short-term geocosmics, and first of all, a quote from Newsweek on Friday. Donald Trump has seen a significant boost in his 2024 election prospects. The Economist's latest election forecast shows that Trump has a 1 in 2 chance of winning the Electoral College in November, and is forecast to win 264 Electoral College votes. Last week, he had a 2 in 5 chance of winning the election and was forecast to get 257 Electoral College votes. Kamala Harris also has a 1 in 2 chance of winning the election, according to the forecast, and is predicted to win 274 Electoral College votes, down from this time last week when she was predicted to pick up 281 Electoral College votes. This also from October 1st, CNN.com. Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon have killed at least 7 high-ranking Hezbollah commanders and officials in recent weeks, including the militant group's chief, who was assassinated in a strike on his underground headquarters in Beirut on Friday. The strikes have dealt the most significant blow to the Iran-backed military group since its formation in the early 1980s. And from The Guardian on Friday. Rescue crews in parts of the southeastern United States were still searching on Friday for those missing as they entered the 8th day since Hurricane Helene roared ashore in Florida and became the deadliest mainland hurricane in the United States since Katrina in 2005. The death toll could grow higher, surpassing 200 on Thursday, while the sheer scale of devastation from the wind and floods has slowed efforts to find many people's loved ones and also get supplies to stranded communities and to restore power to more than 700,000 people." End quote. Now, Ray's comments. The lunar eclipse of September 18th on Neptune brought torrential and damaging rains around the world. At the same time, Saturn retrograde and in semi-square aspect to Pluto has ignited major war activity in the Middle East. This is the first 1/8 of the 32 to 37-year Saturn-Pluto cycle that occurred on January 12, 2020, which coincided with the United States assassination of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. At the same time, many analysts thought that World War III would start. But then the COVID-19 pandemic commenced shortly after, and all attention turned to the threat to human lives. The quote-unquote war that could have erupted was put on hold. However, the dynamics of Saturn and Pluto are now back and especially strong from September 10th through October 18th. The first 1/8 phase of a cycle is when the issues present at the conjunction return. This time, Israeli forces eliminated Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, followed by the elimination of other top leaders of Hezbollah shortly after. In the study of astrology, assassination attempts are mostly ruled by Pluto and to some extent Uranus. Saturn, in a hard aspect to Pluto, is an especially dangerous time. You may remember that the attack on the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001 occurred under the position of Saturn and Pluto. It pertains to conflicts, a fight between power and control, where someone has to lose and be paid back, at least in the mind of one of the parties. This is not a dynamic of joyful celebration, but rather of fear and escalating danger from nature or human activity. In this instance, danger came in both venues, nature and human activity, hurricanes, floods, war, and retaliation. The danger may continue, but at the same time, a break may also start aspiring as Jupiter's theme of hope emerges next week. The week begins with the waxing moon in Sagittarius, October 6th through 9th, along with Jupiter turning stationary retrograde October 9th. Followed by the Sun trine Jupiter on October 13th. Markets may like this arrival of Jupiter energy as the rebuilding process gets underway. And we are not yet done with Pluto, which turns stationary direct on October 11th, followed by a Sun-Mars war conflicts waxing square on October 14th. I would guess that the floods in the southeastern part of the United States are receding, and rescue efforts have led to many beautiful stories of human heroism. But I also think Israel's war effort is still underway, with an aim to wipe out the threat of existence it has endured by those who have wished for its destruction over the past 75 years. With both Jupiter and Pluto changing directions and thus highlighted, there could be a huge retaliatory campaign to seriously decapitate Iran's and Hezbollah and Hamas's military and nuclear ambitions. Also, Uranus is not done transiting over the fixed stars Caput and Algol, 23 to 24 degrees Taurus. In fact, Uranus, the disruptor, is now retrograding over these degrees in October through December 2024. Caput is a fixed star associated with ruthless behavior, and Algol is considered the demon star. Together they were considered the stars of beheading and decapitation, or of losing one's head or mind over someone or something by ancient astrologers. More positive traits would involve passion or falling in love. There can also be a quality of obsession regarding a lover, enemy, or a job to do. In other words, the effort to decapitate one's enemy or to expose oneself to symbolically being decapitated by one's opponent may be a cosmic force at work here in regard to Israel and Iran's response to one another at this time. It may be a conflict that won't stop until the head or heads of the other side is, quote-unquote, decapitated. But the question remains for investors and traders. How do you trade these aspects, these huge contradictory forces all going on at once? Well, war and natural calamities are in fact profitable for many companies. They support higher energy prices. They can also offer support to any commodity markets that benefit from a sense of crisis, such as precious metals and foods like wheat. With Saturn and Pluto in hard aspect, this is a crisis period and it favors commodities. However, it doesn't necessarily lead to a collapse in equity markets, as one might assume. Their patterns are still bullish for the moment, even as the threat of an escalating war rages on. That's it for this week's newsletter. A couple of announcements in the newsletter. If you'd like to check it out on MMAcycles.com, there is a pre-order period for the 2025 forecast book, which we are also going to be doing to audio. And there was an update to the MMA trading app. This is a short-term swing trading app that I've been testing and using here over the last month or so, and they just added the NASDAQ. So now there's the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, gold, and silver, indicating short-term swing trading opportunities based on the sky, and it is phenomenal. Just tell you from personal experience, it works. More information on all of that at MMAcycles.com. Thanks so much for listening. I do hope you guys will check out the app and the forecast book. Those are going to be great. I'm looking forward to reading it again this year. Always gives me a look ahead. All right, I'm out the door. I'm headed on the road. I'll see you guys back on Monday. Have a great rest of the weekend. Thanks for listening.